After 9 o'clock, I got Fidenzio Leija. We're going to be talking about a Veterans Day celebration, a third annual Galveston County Honor Our Local Veterans celebration that's taking place. I'm going to put this on the FM. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Good morning. This is KHEA Radio, 99.5 FM. This is Kickstart. It's 9:06, and I have a guest in studio. I'm going to let him introduce himself and then share what we're talking about today.
Thanks, Gardy. I really appreciate it, brother. Thanks for having me today. So my name is Fidencio Leija. My hometown is the city of Santa Fe, the great city of Santa Fe, and my family is originally from Galveston. So Galveston County as a whole is something very, very important to me. But I served in the U.S. Navy for 9 years after graduating from high school, came home, went to college, started off locally at the community college, at College of the Mainland, did 2 years there, graduated, and then went off to school at Texas State University. So graduated from there and then came home, and now my wife and I own a local business, a farmers insurance agency, where we do our best to work closely with for veterans, for nurses, doctors, and just the community that's really looking for a local agent. My wife's a nurse, and she's been a nurse for 20 years, and she's also a local up-and-comer that she went through the pipeline of College of the Mainland, then UTMB. So extremely, extremely proud of my wife and all the hard work that she's done. But today we're here to talk about Operation Honor Our Local Veterans. We started in 2018 and was founded. The great thing is that we've had some amazing support by a local attorney. He's our legal counsel. His name is Mark Savalier. Very well known in Galveston County, but specifically in Texas City. We've known each other for a long time through church. But what's amazing, Gardy, is that we never really talk shop. Like, what do you do for a living? What do I do for a living? And we had done several retreats, the Acts retreats through the Catholic Church. And finally, one day, we finally sat down and talked. And come to find out, this guy's an attorney. Doing some amazing work.
You had no idea he was an attorney?
I had no earthly idea. Earthly idea. Extremely humble guy, great people, someone that, you could easily bond with, connect with, and adopt them like an uncle. And that's Mr. C. So Mr. Mark Savalier, again, he's very involved with the church in Texas City, the Catholic Church there, St. Mary's, the Miraculous Medal. And so, man, I told him about this idea that I had, and the purpose came from I wanted to honor those veterans that have actually guided me and allowed me to be where I am today. Every time I look back on what has gotten me to where I am today, there was always a veteran there. Family's always there, right? You always have family there, but there were some critical people that kind of pushed me. And when I went to College of the Mainland after returning back, after serving in Japan after 9/11, I went to College of the Mainland, and there was a professor there that he was a veteran. And I took one class with him, but he's the one who pushed me and said, hey, every other student is going to do one essay, you're going to do two. And when everybody else has to read a book, I'm going to force you to read 2 books. And I was just like, man, what is this guy doing to me? But he pushed me, and so I kind of want to thank him. And then the next thing is when I went to Texas State, in between there, I lost a brother in a fatal car accident. And so it was the toughest time of my life. But again, there was a professor at Texas State University that took me under his wing, mentored me, and allowed me to really flourish at Texas State University. So I became part of student government there. I sat on city council there as the student liaison. So none of that's possible without mentorship, because none of us do anything alone. You got to have somebody there that helps you, guides you, coaches you, and sometimes kicks you in the butt.
So with your organization, was that the idea behind it? You wanted to be that person to be there for local veterans?
Absolutely. And it's just not me. It's our board consists of nothing but veterans. And so those that are not familiar with the chain of command of the military, you have officers, of course, and then you have enlisted guys. And so everybody on our board is enlisted. And so the majority of military branches are enlisted, men and women, right? So our board consists of nothing but enlisted guys. So we have people that are on our board. We have a young guy named Robert Garcia. He's our youngest guy. He's in his late 20s. Then, we have somebody like Chris Wheeler that works with the Santa Fe ISD. And then we have somebody we call Scuba Steve. And this guy, Scuba Steve, his name is Steven Saltzman. And he's our most senior guy. But this guy here is amazing. He went in his 20s to serve in the military. He became a United States Marine, recon, So recon is no joke, right? So he's Special Forces. This guy is the real deal. So he ends up doing 2 tours in Iraq. He was one of the first units that went in. He gets out, gets recruited by Blackwater. And I'm not sure if you know who Blackwater is, but, this is a very unique organization that did some amazing work out there. But there were also a few things that were kind of pinpointed about things that they were doing. But either way, he goes back and does several tours with Blackwater. So he was out there in the mix of things, very heavy. So he comes back, and of course, he's dealing with what most combat veterans are dealing with, right? Challenges. And for those that are not aware, one of the things that typically comes with PTSD is one thing that's usually attached to it, which is not good, is divorce. And then on top of divorce, then you're dealing with all of the challenges of going through the motions of trying to transition back into the civilian world and deal with everything that you have to deal with overseas. So my point is that our board alone is we almost become a therapy session for the first 45 minutes every time we have our executive board meeting. Why? Because everybody in that meeting has dealing with something. Almost 80% of our board has some type of service-connected disability. So again, that's where we begin. First, we got to help each other be successful, people on this board. And then from there, we trickle out. What can we do to serve Galveston County? And again, our organization is not trying to expand across the nation or into other counties. We feel that if we can be hyper-local and work with our local elected officials, work with our local mayors, work with local city council, local organizations, then we can do greatness for those veterans that are in need.
How has it been connecting with those local individuals? You serve in the city of Santa Fe and are a business owner and pretty connected. Has it been easy talking to local cities and their people about what y'all are doing?
I would say yes, and the reason why is because most organizations and even municipalities, these cities, a lot of them want to do positive impact programs for veterans, but they're just not familiar with what to do. And they're also trying to run their city, right? So there's a piece of them that want to do it, but they just don't know what to do. So that's where we come in. We want to make it easy for them. And so one of the first ones that we start off with, Gardy, is trying to do recognition projects. So how can we give that everyday veteran that lives in your city recognition for their service to their country? So what we started off with was just a simple veterans parking sign, right? Mm-hmm. So we started off with the city of Santa Fe and this sign here. So we printed 40 of these signs and we said, hey, let's get local businesses, local churches, and even the school district and the city to adopt these signs. Well, guess what? It went off like hotcakes. And so this sign here, you can go to some of the local churches in the city of Santa Fe, and you'll find them everywhere. You'll go to Arlen's, you'll go to Galco Hardware, you'll go to Day Spring Church, just everywhere you'll see them. Even at Hack Winery, you'll see a lot of these entities that adopted these signs.
What's the feedback, from the veterans? How do they feel whenever they see that?
So one gentleman that went into Galco Hardware, and the owner there was also a veteran. He just recently sold it to a great family. But overall, when the veterans would go in, some of them would not park in it, Gardy. They would not park in the parking sign. But what they would do is go over and take a picture with it. Then they would go inside and talk to the owner and tell him, thank you for having that. It just made my day. So just think about it. For the average veteran that is dealing with some emotion, some triggers in their life, and it's just one of those dark days for them, but for them to go to a local business like Galco Hardware and see that sign, it may save their life.
Do you think that, if someone's not parking it, they're like, well, someone may need it more than me. They just have that serving spirit, I guess.
Yes, and there's a lot of veterans that will do that. And a lot of our guys, we've talked about it, and I've talked to different veterans. But sometimes I got to tell them, I said, look, veterans are part of the 1% Club. And the 1% Club is that those that have actually taken the oath to serve their country and be part of the armed forces, you're part of the 1% Club. You've sacrificed to leave your family behind, give up your citizenship, and become Department of Defense. Now you're the property of the Department of Defense and the armed forces. And so now you're part of the 1% Club. So you deserve that parking sign to be there at your local businesses, at your local church, right? And to be able to pull up and park there. So I try to help our veterans to say, hey, take ownership of that opportunity that you worked so hard for and that you sacrificed for. Park there, brother, and own it. And so a lot of the times it changes a little bit, right? But still, I think it's pretty amazing to walk up to a sign, take a picture with it, and still thank the owner, right? So that's one of the pieces. The other city that recently also adopted it this past year was the city of Hitchcock. So if you look at the signs on the very top, it says a City of Hitchcock project. And then it has all of the logos at the bottom for every branch. And then, of course, our logo, the Operation on Our Local Veterans. So this is an upgraded one in comparison to the other one. And so the City of Hitchcock, you'll see them in the City of Hitchcock. So one of our goals is to at least get one or two cities every year to adopt the 40 veteran parking signs until we have every city in Galveston County that adopts a minimum of 40 veteran signs. So guess who's next on to join and to adopt the recognition project?
I'm going to say let's bring it to Lamarck.
Come on. So I'm going to have to reach out to the mayor there. But the next city is the city of Friendswood.
Really?
In the city of Friendswood, we actually attended one of their council meetings, spoke to them. They actually have the mayor is a veteran, and he served, and he's an astronaut as well as a pilot for the Navy. So pretty intense, right?
An astronaut, a Navy pilot, and he's the mayor?
And he's the mayor. Okay. So pretty awesome.
It's qualified.
Just a bit. So, and that's Mayor Mike Foreman. And so we went over there and presented, and they also had a gentleman that served in the United States Marine Corps that's also on council. So we presented to them, and we couldn't do this without our partners. So one of our key partners is ACU of Texas. They actually have their own nonprofit that supports veterans, and it's called SERVE. And so the gentleman that's over there that carries that torch is Jay Kopic. Mm-hmm. And so Jay he's not a veteran himself, but, we joke around and call him the Admiral because he's always kicking butt and doing everything he can for veterans, not just in Galveston County, but he stretches out to Harris County as well, Brazoria County. He does a lot of great work. But SERVE and ACU of Texas actually pick up the cost on the signs. It was our design, but it was them who were willing to adopt us and say, hey, we'll cover the cost. So he and I presented along with our attorney, Mark Savalier, at the city of Friendswood, and they were all about it. So they're going to do a proclamation on November the 13th, adopting the signs and making sure that we honor our veterans there in Friendswood.
ACU, they give back a lot.
Oh, ACU is a great partner,
they are.
And they were always out there. And again, this third annual Galveston County Veterans Day celebration could not be possible without them. They've been there with us all 3 years. They've donated to us. They volunteered. They support us. So ACU is a great partner of ours. great partner. The other one is Del Papa. They've been there all 3 years with us. So we're making this a tradition, and we're hoping to grow this and continue to grow it. And one of my dreams is I always tell my board, I said, man, I want to bring George Strait down on the 10th year anniversary. I've always,
awesome.
bringing Galveston County needs George Strait to come down here.
And okay, so for this one, I saw that there is going to be entertainment at the end of the night. We can get into all that, but there is going to be, I think, is it Joe Blake? Joe Blake is going to be singing at the end of the event.
Yes.
So we get George Strait on the 10th year.
On the 10th year.
Okay.
So we're going to have to get everybody to rally and try to get George here in the 10th year anniversary of the Veterans Day celebration. But we got Joe Blake. But the great thing about Joe Blake, if you don't know Joe Blake, is that he served in the Army for 11 years. 11 years he served our country, and now he's back home. He actually works for the city of Pasadena as an electrician, does great work, and I just can't wait to be able to share his story about how he transitioned back. Because, again, I mean, this guy served 11 years, and now to make that transition, we need to be able to hear how he made that transition now. And that piece of him stringing that guitar and singing, I'm sure it's a big piece of it.
How important is it for people like him to share their story, say, this is how I did it, or this is what I'm still dealing with daily, or this helped me? Whenever they share that story, how helpful is that to veterans?
I think it's massive. So the first year we hosted this, we did it in partnership with the city of Santa Fe, the Santa Fe Chamber of Commerce, and at the Heritage Festival. And so one of the pieces that happened and this is God doing his work and letting miracles happen, and hopefully that we do his work, right? Mm-hmm. So there was a veteran that came in and saw the event that we were hosting and brought him in. A lot of the times our veterans that are in those dark places that are dealing with PTSD, dealing with this fatigue, dealing with just depression, and having that challenge of transitioning. So we were sitting around our tent, and we provide food, and food is always one of those pieces that everybody's willing to connect with, right? So we're our barbecue team, where everybody's eating brisket, everybody's eating and having a drink, and this veteran walks up, and he has his Marine Corps hat and bronze medal. So this guy, combat vet, right? But this guy was a country-fed boy. I mean, he was a big boy. He had to be 6'4", Gardy. I mean, big guy. So he comes up and he sees all of us just having a good time, but we're all throwing dirt on each other's boots, right? Well, you're a squid because you're in the Navy, and then this guy's in the Air Force. Oh, that's the little kids department. And then with the Marine Corps, we're throwing, you guys eat crayons. And so everybody's kind of throwing dirt at each other. And that camaraderie right there, we're sitting around this cocktail table, and he's standing there, and he hits one of us in the shoulder, and he says, "Damn, this is exactly what I needed." He goes, "I missed this." And you see this tear coming down his face. And that right there still gives me chills. So we end up embracing him, and nobody knew him. And he had just heard about the event and showed up. But that camaraderie right there that he's missing, he ends up sharing with us that he's pushed his wife away, that he's pushed his kids away because he's been in a dark place for the last 2 years. Not 3 months, not 1 month, not 9 months, 2 years he's been in a dark place. From there, that's the opportunity, Gardy, of hosting these events. That camaraderie of his brothers and sisters sitting around there, having that piece of kicking dirt on each other that he knows so well because we all served, that we're able to pull him in the fold, put our arm around him and say, "Hey, how can we help you?" So our logo, if you see our logo, it says we are veterans that serve veterans and connect veterans. So our job is to serve them, but at the same time, we need to make sure that we connect them to services. And so we do a great job of partnering with Jay and ACU and Serve to figure out how do we connect them. How do we get them to therapy? How do we get them to a group, a veterans group? How do we get them to volunteer so that way we don't lose them? So those are the big pieces.
And that's taking place, I think it's a resource fair at the Veterans Day celebration, right?
Absolutely. And so that resource fair is being hosted by Serve. They put it together, and last year we had over 13 organizations. Man, they got some really cool organizations like the Waves Project, Jay Picard. So Jay Picard, another one of our combat vets, got shot, and went through his shoulder, went out, and this guy's a combat medic. And when he tells his story, it's hilarious, but also at the same time, you see what veterans go through, where he's talking about trying to tell the combat vet how to fix him because he was just in shock, right? So Jay Picard, again, with the Waves Project, what they do is if you're a veteran and you have any service-connected disability, you can apply to their program, and they'll teach you how to scuba dive and get you certified. Man, it was amazing. I got to go out and dive with other veterans and get under the water. Man, was it a challenge? Yeah, it was a challenge. But actually getting to go through that process and learn how to scuba dive, oh, man, it was phenomenal.
That's awesome.
And so those are the type of projects or programs that are available to us, and we want to connect veterans to that. You have other organizations that do other things like therapy, and there's other organizations that work with horses, and there's other organizations that are just looking for volunteers. So we want to connect our veterans to that resource fair, get you signed up, and figure out how you can join these. And a lot of them are free to vets.
Mm-hmm. So the event for I think the city of Hitchcock is partnering and is kicking it off. Can you walk me through, what that looks like time-wise?
And so we definitely want to take our hat off to the city of Hitchcock. It's in their hometown, right? So the Galveston County Fairgrounds is right there at Jack Brooks Park. And if you haven't gone to the Galveston County Fairgrounds, you need to visit it. But it's just more than the fairgrounds. I mean, they have a veterans center there where they have the flags, they have the monuments, really cool trails. I mean, it's just great. Mm-hmm. If you haven't biked out there or anything, you need to get out there. So the city of Hitchcock, last year, Mayor Randy Strickland, former mayor, Randy Strickland was really adamant about coming on board and saying, what can we do for veterans? So Mayor Randy Strickland says, hey, I want to work with our council and I want to work with our EDC to figure out how we can support this event. It's in our backyard. We want to step up. So last year, they went all out and supported the event. They owned and held the Veterans Day Parade. So that's one of the first ones that'll kick off that evening at 4:30. They'll have the Veterans Day Parade that'll run from Bulldog Lane. So for the Bulldogs, right, the city of Hitchcock, 4:30, Bulldog Lane, down Highway 6 all the way to the fairgrounds. Finish up about 5:30, and then at 6 p.m. we have our Veterans Day celebration where we honor 10 local veterans, not just for their commitment to serve their country, but also their commitment to return home and serve their community. So what we call those individuals are VIPs, Veterans in Public Service. So our veterans in public service, we see them everywhere, but they're not labeled, right? They're not walking around with a T-shirt that says, I'm a VIP, right? But think about it. Look at the city of Hitchcock, just the city of Hitchcock. Their chief of police is a veteran. He's a VIP. Their superintendent of the school district, the city of Hitchcock, he's a veteran and a Navy veteran. So they're everywhere, brother. So we need to make sure that we highlight these VIPs that are in Galveston County, these veterans in public service. One of our board members works for the Santa Fe Fire and Rescue, and he's an EMT. So imagine someone coming to save you. this guy, besides being in the military and seeing everything that he saw there, is now going to have enough stamina, but also that experience hands-on to take care of you when he comes and assist you as an EMT. But again, do you know that he's a VIP, that he's a veteran in public service? No. But the great thing is they're everywhere. We have teachers, we have doctors, we have nurses, we have sheriffs. Just they're everywhere. You know, one of the individuals that we honored last year was Ranger Joe. He's the most senior and longest serving ranger, Texas Ranger. And again, he's a VIP. He served in the military, and now he's the longest serving Texas Ranger.
Is that the most, I guess, most veterans maybe go into some sort of public service, or is that something that you know?
I would say it's probably an easier transition.
Yeah.
And the reason why is there's process, right? There's process, and we're so used to standard operating procedures. We're so used to structure. So we understand those pieces, so it makes sense to us going into the medical field, going in even into teaching. So the gentleman that we were just highlighting, that the city of Hitchcock, the Hitchcock ISD superintendent, he was one of the first cohorts of the Troops to Teachers program. So the Troops to Teachers program, he was one of the first cohorts, and now this guy's a superintendent. So I think it's pretty amazing. And if we don't share those stories, other veterans that are getting out may not know where to go and how to do it. But if he tells this story, now it's going to make it a bit smoother, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what we're trying to do here.
So you get to meet a lot of people. You get to talk to a lot of veterans. What are some things that Galveston County needs? You know, if Operation Honor Our Local Veterans could partner with the county or with these cities, what are some resources that y'all could offer in partnership? What do we need?
So that's a great question. In the future, and the dream is, in the long-term vision, is for us to have our own facility. Why? Because Galveston County has one of the highest percentages of veterans that call Galveston County home. We have 254 counties in the state of Texas, and Galveston County has one of the highest percentages. And so we have over 22,000 veterans in Galveston County. That's a lot of veterans, right? So we have to figure out how to serve those veterans that are calling Galveston County home. With that being said, a lot of our veterans want to be served locally and not have to travel to Houston or Harris County. Yes, it's great. But when you start looking at the resources that we have available down here in comparison to Harris County or some of these greater cities or metropolitans, we don't have it. You head north, you're going to have transition homes. You're going to have organizations that do a lot more therapy sessions. They're going to be able to have other facilities, their own gym, pools. So the future is, Gardy, is we hope that one day we can sit down with all of our elected officials, all of our mayors, and start figuring out how to allocate funding specifically for veterans for us to have our own facility, which would have transition homes where some of our vets that are coming home, maybe they're single. We need to have a one house apartment for them, right? If they have a family, and be able to guide them for a year to 2 years and then get them on their feet, figure out how to do workforce development for them. I come from the nonprofit background. I used to work for neighborhood centers and used to run and manage a community center. So I'm very familiar with programming. And you have to have these programs. But the other thing, too, is how can we have a facility that also hires veterans? That maybe we put them in, some of them that are cooks, and be able to have our own little mini restaurant that people could, our veterans can run that. You know, how do we have a facility that the grounds are kept by veterans, right? We have to also find jobs for them and create jobs for them. So do you have to have this interdisciplinary, holistic approach, and we need to allocate land for veterans. We need to allocate resources, and we have to have our own facility. And again, when you start thinking about like the Waves Project, they usually have to go somewhere else to find a pool to be able to help train and get people scuba dive qualified, right?
Yeah.
So
if there was one, it's like, hey, this is where we're gonna go.
Yeah,
you could sign up here and all that stuff.
That's right.
Make it happen.
I mean, imagine all of our veterans that are dealing with, injuries. They need to have a sauna. They need to have a hot tub. They need to have these different things that we can set up where they can come together. The other thing that a lot of people aren't aware of is that through this whole COVID and this pandemic, a lot of our organizations took a major hit. The ones that typically veterans are very familiar with is the American Legion and the VFW, right? The Veterans of Foreign Wars. Some of those organizations had to shut down because of the pandemic and just because there was just no resources to keep them up and going. A lot of our veterans would go to those as a social network, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was their way of healing and staying connected and staying engaged somehow.
Yeah.
But when those shut down, and they can't go anywhere, what is going to happen to those vets?
We had the opportunity to film and talk to Galveston County Judge Mark Henry, and we filmed a video for him where they're saying, like, hey, we need to open these up. And I think it was like they were classified as a bar because of the license or something, the way it was.
Right.
But they did a lot more than that. It's like a social thing, and they do these fundraisers and support veterans and stuff like that. But they weren't allowed to be open just on a technicality.
Yeah, and they'll get a bad rap. And some people look at them as just as bars. But I go at least once a month to my local VFW post 5400 that I'm a part of. And I'll go in there and just go in there, and some of the guys that are sitting at the bar, they're not even drinking beer. They're drinking sodas. It's just their social network.
Right.
Not all of them are sitting there having a beer. But I'll go in there and spend some money there in order to continue supporting our local VFW, our post, so that way it keeps the lights on. Make sure that it's still maintain that social network. But at the same time, we still need to have our own facility that probably doesn't have any alcohol there at all. And it's a facility where they can bring their kids, that they can also network, and we can host other veterans organizations in there and make it inclusive.
So last year and even up until today, there's been a lot of businesses that have closed. Churches weren't allowed to be open for a bit. Nonprofits, whenever it comes to funding, you got to keep fundraising. But if you couldn't have events, how did that affect Operation Honor our local veterans?
Well, tremendously. Our budget for this year for this Veterans Day event is cut in half. Last year was phenomenal. Again, we had a lot of sponsors, a lot of support, and I think it was right there where people just were eager to have something. And the piece is that this year we have to cut it back, right? Last year we had these amazing fireworks. This year we don't feel that we're going to be able to raise the money to cover the fireworks this year. But we're in lieu of those fireworks, we're bringing some great entertainment and some great country singers, right? And so everybody was impacted, right? Local businesses, nonprofits, churches, everybody was impacted. But what I like to try to bring to light, Gardy, is all of us are dealing with something every day, right? We started dealing with stress. We started dealing with anxiety. We started feeling kind of like claustrophobic because we're only at home because we're going through this pandemic. But imagine for the average veteran or that veteran that's also dealing with PTSD, fatigue, the additional strains on top of what everyday Americans or everyday citizens are dealing with. So they have that on top of that. So we have to be very conscious of those emotions and feelings that veterans are dealing with. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. But what I do know is their stories because they share them with me. So it's very important that we have to figure out funding and resources to be allocated to a veterans organizations like ours that's committed to serving them and connecting them to resources.
Mm-hmm. And I think that people still want to support, and I think that if the right people in leadership heard, this is what it's going to, that they would want to support too. But that's why I like kind of sharing information out like this, because it gives people an opportunity. Like, I want to be involved in that.
Right.
You know, I can give. Maybe I can volunteer my time. There's things that I can do to get involved.
So, and I think right now, I mean, it's not too late to donate. It's also not too late to volunteer. And it's not too late if you have a cooking team, because we are looking for one more awesome cooking team in Galveston County to come out to serve. Like, remember, our Veterans Day event is a full-day event, Gardy. It's a full-day event, and we've done it last year at 0800. We have a prayer breakfast. You know, we got to make sure that our faith is strong. And so at 8 o'clock in the morning, we have a prayer breakfast at Ed Pickett Hall. The great thing is the Knights of Columbus, Council 10393, which is out of Our Lady of Lourdes Catholic Church. So the Knights of Columbus have sponsored the prayer breakfast this year. So it's an opportunity for our veterans to come out. We pray, we acknowledge their service, recognize them, and we provide them some breakfast. That's at early in the morning. At lunchtime, we have our Vietnam Veterans Luncheon. We've partnered with one of the amazing organizations, which is called the Vietnam Veterans of America. This is an organization, just remember our Vietnam veterans, how they were treated when they came home. And if you haven't heard their story, you need to sit down with a Vietnam veteran and let them tell you the emotions and the pains and the struggles that they had to deal with when they came home from Vietnam. And a lot of them have never received that warm welcome of welcome home. I go to our local butcher shop, Dork's Meat Market, which is always an amazing sponsor for us, always supports us. So I definitely want to thank the Dork family. And, of course, they just won again the Galveston County Best Burger, right, from the Daily News. So
it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
So Raymond Dork, John Dork, that whole entire family there, the Dork family, and the people that work there, Liz, everybody there, they're just great. But I bring them up because they have one of their butchers there. And last year when we went over there and we were sharing with them about our Veterans Day event, so Raymond ends up telling me, hey, one of my guys in the back is a veteran. He goes, let me bring him out and I want to introduce you to him. So we start chopping it up right there, and we're talking, and he served in the branch, and I'm a Vietnam vet, and we start talking. And I told him, I said, hey, thank you for your service, and I shook his hand. And we just start going into it. So he starts telling me, he says, it's taken me several years, and just recently in the last 3 years, I've been able to go get a flag, a United States flag, and put it on my house. Just in the last 3 years, Gardy. He says, because everything that we had to deal with coming home. So I feel for my guys that are Vietnam veterans, man. And so he's telling me this story, and then he starts crying. This grown man. Grown man that served our country as a Vietnam veteran, sitting there in Dork's Meat Market with tears coming down his face because he feels that pain of when he returned so many years ago, and he could only now in the last 3 years put up an American flag on his house. Imagine that, brother.
Wow.
That's overwhelming, and that's the reason we are committed to serving and honoring our local veterans, because those individuals like that are carrying that on their heart and on their shoulders. And if we don't embrace them and we don't take the time to acknowledge them, man, what are we doing to serve them?
Yeah, I feel like there's a brotherhood out there. There's people out there. You don't have to carry that weight alone.
Yeah.
There's people that you can talk to and people that will help carry that burden with you.
Yeah. And, we have Scuba Steve, and again, I'm going to talk about Saltzman. So Saltzman went through some challenges as well, and there's a great organization, or a great program, I should say, that both Harris County and Galveston County has. And you mentioned Judge Mark Henry. He's a big advocate, and of course, he served in the military. it's called the Veterans Court. We're all going to trip over our feet. We're all going to be challenged by life. And sometimes we end up in court, right? Mm-hmm. DWI, domestic violence, whatever it may be. But veterans are also dealing with that other pieces that we've already talked about, PTSD and transitioning and all of the other emotions. So this great program allows veterans a second chance. But it's also not a free pass. They have to go through several sessions in counseling and therapy and training to overcome what the mistake that they ended up making, right? And so Scuba Steve is actually a graduate of that program out of Harris County. And he's not shy to share that, and he's allowed me to share his story multiple times. But Scuba Steve now has taken ownership and is working with those programs, and actually on November 10th, he's going to be doing a fish fry and cooking fish for those that are in the current program. That's leadership, brother.
Yeah.
You tripped over your feet. You know what you did wrong. You emerge from it. You recover from it. And now Scuba Steve is out there serving his brothers and sisters that are going through the same program that he's been through. And he's cooking for them, brother. Mm-hmm. He's serving them. He's making fish that he caught and, going out there and serving them. That's leadership, brother. And that's Operation Honor Our Local Veterans at its best. Scuba Steve.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you would like to share?
I think the biggest piece is we want people to come out. If you're a military veteran and you served our country and you have your ID, you can show up to the prayer breakfast at 8 o'clock. You can show up to Vietnam Veterans Luncheon at noon or the evening event at 6 p.m. And it's free for you to get in. It's free for you to eat. And we were asking you to come and join us. Have some camaraderie with the brothers and sisters that serve along with you. Let us acknowledge you. And if you want to volunteer and be part of the organization, come out. And for those that are civilians, those that did not serve, like our attorney says, Mark Savalier, he goes, you also have a role in serving our veterans. And if you want to join Operation Honor Our Local Veterans, you can. You can donate, you can volunteer, or you can provide and donate services or programs or whatever you have, your talents and treasures to help Operation Honor Our Local Veterans be successful.
That's awesome. I love it. So that's going to be Thursday, November the 11th. That's Veterans Day. There's going to be the breakfast, but the parade starts at 4:30, City of Hitchcock. Then there's going to be a resource fair an hour later. And then after that, the celebration and awards ceremony, and it's free for veterans.
And we'll have the entertainment that night. Again, Joe Blake. And we have someone else that we added on, another country singer, local country singer. Her name is Susan Hickman. So Joe Blake and Susan Hickman will be on stage performing. They'll probably start right around 7. Great event, community event, family-friendly event. Come out, join us, support us. Visit honorlocalvets.org or look us up on Facebook at Operation Honor Our Local Veterans.
Thank you for hanging out today.
Gardy, always a pleasure, brother. I appreciate you.
This is KHEA Radio 99.5.